All right. Well, I got home at 4. I really want to watch that Four Nations final. Oh, there you go. That's not bad. I was been wearing a hat all day. It never helps with my hair. Winter seemed to be coming back here today. Oh, really strong cold headwind. I actually had to get. I went and got my bike. I can't afford to fix back, and got down to the ocean, and the wind was so firm, and I'm so unfit that I just had to get off the bike and walk. Like I've done this before. You get these 80-kilometer-an-hour winds, sometimes gusting to 100. And one night I tried to ride home in this, and I was literally struggling to stay on a 10-foot wide sidewalk. Like the wind was pushing me in gusts towards the road where I couldn't even control the bicycle anymore. And again, even at my advanced age, in my 60th year coming up, right? I'm in my 60th year. Well, I guess I'm in my 59th, heading to my 60th, I guess. Because we do zero births, at least. We don't zero apartment buildings and should, but we zero births. So yeah, I mean, I'm heading into my 60th year. I feel old already. Just yeah, my capacities have been greatly diminished by the stress of my existence the last 20 years. So this is what they say: 45 and 60 are big shifting years, and it seems this is what I'm experiencing. So there's just more loss coming, I guess. Find some happiness and peace. I don't know how I'm supposed to do that completely isolated, where 99% of the world is antagonistic to me because I can't deny reality because of my education, and they've been empowered to just shout people like me down. Like if I had power, I might be listened to and respected, but I don't. And that's the sickening part. Like, even the people who are fighting for good causes are power seekers. Like they have to be power seekers to even get to the point where they can say, and this is my problem. As long as the only way human beings can coexist and work out their issues and build civilizations and societies is in this endless power seeking on both sides. It just gets corrupted. This is the problem of churn. You come in as a fresh faced teenager, and you see all these problems, like their inconsistencies about what you've been told in ideal terms about what humans are doing. And then, of course, you're in your zeal, you will compose yourself. I am going to change the system within. Well, the problem is you can't. And so you spend the next 20 years accruing power. And by the time you get enough power to change the system, the problems are not the ones you want to fix anymore. They're 20 years old now. There's different problems. I think this happens. The arrogance of leadership is to think that its youthful motivations are the grounds for how it should be leading now. And good leaders should understand they need to seek out the input of all spectrums of experience amongst those that lead. To understand that young people can be idiots about this crap. A lot of young people are developing through a tribal stage, and it looks like they're scientific at some juncture. So they want to save the planet, but then they move out of that to a higher level and they forget about that. And then they go on just to making money and accruing power and getting laid or buying shit. Like, what is it? The standard shit. Like, this is just, we shouldn't have to explain to you. Young people need to be tempered by wisdom. Leadership needs to be in the middle. And leadership, in this country, we are disposing the elderly. We're disposing whatever wisdom they might be able to pass on to us. We're politicizing marginalized crap amongst the young, pitting them all against one another, forcing them into tribes. They're led by these influencers, uneducated boobs who can accrue massive amounts of looks for reasons that escape me, because I'm trying to do something actually intellectually difficult, challenging, revisionary here, and of course no one is going to. The likelihood of me accruing enough followers to earn a living this way with the time I have left in the state of the world and my desire to divest, well, yeah, I'm not banking on that either. Anyways, excuse me for a moment. I have a little sicko. All right. So I'm going to just see how far I can get. We're going to move this cat parable forward. I make a point. I misspoke about the naming part of the cat. So initially we perceive cats before we conceive of them. We perceive them and behave in regards to them as other animals. So at whatever stage where we were still in a proto language or mainly hunter gatherers, you know, we wouldn't have been as concerned to cash out the essence of cats. Um, we probably didn't coexist with them at some point back in time either. So they would have been more incidental in our environment. Of course, you know, it's not surprising that a lot of animals have peeked back onto our civilizations because we afford them easier access to food, you know, and then we blame them for the consequences of our inability to contain our waste. You know, if you don't want rats, you've got to, it's like bears in Whistler. You know, they do a good job. I don't know if they're still doing it. You just gotta remove any incentive for the bears to come into the villages. And the only reason a bear is going to come into a human population because they don't want to they don't want to come into our domains any more than we should be going into theirs. But the thing they will be driven by is us degrading their environments to the point where the only place they can find food is in our dumps and garbage cans, or our idiots feeding them. Oh, well, I just think more stupid people. I just wish bears would eat more stupid people that feed them. I just really think if you're going to feed a tame bear, you deserve to be eaten by something because you're stupid. And it's just, you've seen too many TELUS commercials and Disney movies. Anthropomorphizing wild animals is a bad idea. It's so simple. Minor sacrifices and proactive behavior, and we can reasonably coexist with wild animals. But good luck getting the average boob not to be an idiot about this shit because of where they get their information from. So initially, the whole derivation experience, right? The perceptual belief, that's a cat. Doesn't have to be said. That's a world. That's a radical world to mind fit, right? Sensory through perceptive, right? Even before this unique consciousness and unique language bearing. It's not that animals don't communicate with languages. This is an undiscovered difference here. Is this a boon? Like, is it the hands, right? I asked that before. So, in cases, now you have a symbol, or an arbitrary symbol, cat. You've experienced the essence, now you've branded that essence cat. Well, in a whimsical use, you can now call your dog cat. Are you impugning that animal with, no, it's a slip and slide. So that is a world, I said that backwards. That's a mind to world fit. It's a baptism of naming, right? And there's a tremendous amount of interesting literature. Kripke has some wonderful ideas here, you know, because you got to distinguish these different levels: the universal, the use of a particular, the revealing of essence, the reference to types, to tokens of types, and then there's no constraints from there to reuse this thin, peeled off cat thing, or the written thing. I think this gets reversed, and then you've completely severed any sort of essence bearing there. You know, there's a trace. There's something intentional in a person who might do such things. Like, I called my dog a contradiction, not because he is essentially contradictory in nature, but some of his behaviors are irrational in a way that might contradict normal dog behavior, right? So maybe your dog acts more like a cat, so you call it a cat, or maybe your cat acts more like a dog, so you call it a dog. I mean, these the barriers between essence are not as firm as logic would have them. So I'm just going to pick up more of this text. I got all the cats lined up in this little search. This was the thing I forgot to mention. Like all of a sudden now when I search, it spawns another window with all the search results. This is new. I don't want this. It was fine the way it worked before. And so now, the what do you call this? Your icons at the bottom. That's not right. Tabs. No. Whatever on your I used to know all these terms better. So I click on the Adobe button and it doesn't bring up Adobe. It brings up the stupid search. So this is insane. So before I could just click on the paper, and if there were search terms, it would all be there presented all at once effortlessly. And now I got to click up the search thing. Then I got to right click on the Adobe icon and select the reader. And then now the search thing's in the back. Why? How is this an improvement? I don't have any money to buy this stuff, but even if I had money, I wouldn't, because the free stuff is so terrible. They should pay me to use it. Oh, just no one else noticed this. Is this some kind of, am my negative mind power so bad that I'm making all this crap happen to me? I don't think so. Like, I could go on and on about just the general degradation in quality. And I mean, I love Costco, but I've noticed the quality of the garlic and ginger, which I really like because of where they source it. It's effective, good. But I'm getting more and more mold. I like 20% of my garlic I end up throwing away. The ginger gets moldy faster. I'm having to freeze it to make it last longer. So this is clearly been this creep in quality down and accountability lack. And I mean, again, this just seems where this is what Trump's going to do. He's going to gut all this stuff. You're not going to be able to have any faith in the safety of anything anymore. And this is what he wants to do. He just wants to churn everything over on the entire planet towards his endless need for more money and power. It's not about governing. He wants to destroy everything. I don't think people understand how awful this man is. He is trying to destroy stuff. He's a sociopath. This gives him joy. He knows he's an asshole and he revels in it. He's a really good one. Oh, I don't know. It's a waste of time when half of America has voted this idiot in. And there's a lot of Canadians that don't see, even now, how bad this man is for them. So I was talking about that fact that if we're constantly engaged in the representational part of our ego bearing, which is to be stuck in the default mode network, which is this vigilance, right? I'm the subject. My desires and goals are constantly under threat. Hypervigilance, fear-based at times, it's behavioral. And the thing I thought we were developing our rationality was for just to combat that. And we got the allegiance here with the Buddhist practice, which I think is a lot about disidentifying, right? That if by people don't, it's not to stop thinking. You can't stop thinking, but you can stop deciding those thoughts are your thoughts. This is the problem of identity, that is this gender nightmare just buries completely our sexual identity. Why have we reduced everything? This is fucking more wallowing. We need to have a 5 noble truths approach to identity. And the greatest wisdom you can learn, and I'll teach it to you right here, is you are not your thoughts. They're not your thoughts. There is a flow of this thinking emerges at the level of human consciousness. I don't think it exists in animals. They feel, emote, and at times are clearly intentionally behaving. but I don't think they have this inner monologue. And I think this inner monologue is problematic. It's really problematic. And we need to learn how to disidentify with it. And if we don't, we're just all victimized endlessly by our conditioning. And that's my problem essentially here too. But I, if I'm going to love myself and value my own education, well, I mean, I have no choice but to revalorize that content. I could be wrong. I'm willing to be shown wrong, but I'm not in a mode where I'm just going to assert some belief as if it's true, and then construct the power to serve as justification. This is the thing. We should all be more skeptical about our own believing in particular. I try to be, and yet I'm impelled to continue to defend this work that fell into my lap, and I have reluctantly furthered when I've had no options but to do so. You got to do something with your life, and this is all I got to construct meaning for myself. So as awful as it's been, I don't have anything better to replace it with. Um, and so I'll just pick this up because remember we were talking about the lag of the fact that no representation can ever coexist with the now that caused it to be manifest. And I think this is a problem for certainty and control, right there. Even though it's a tiny little sliver, it's enough. It should be teaching us something about the falseness of our ego bearing. I mean, it was a biological necessity, a spandrel, acceptation. It served us, but it's not serving nature anymore, and that's the thing we have to change, right? So I'll just pick it up here. Some people might argue we speak without thinking first, but I don't think that's true. I mean, a lot of you see young kids and they sound really precocious. They sound advanced for the years. I just think they're aping behavior. They're encoded. They don't know what they're saying a lot of the times. I think we get fooled by it. I don't think children know shit about shit. I don't think 20-year-olds know shit about shit. They're encoding a bunch of fucking symbolizations. It doesn't mean they understand. This is the problem. I'm watching this game show, The Floor, and I'm sure these people who win these battles recalling the names of common things, and then it's just the luck of the draw whether the marginal cases that are actually tough will differentiate people. But does this people understand? I mean, these people understand the essence of the things that they can remember the arbitrary labels for? No, not at all. I mean, it doesn't mean that they don't. It's just these sorts of skill sets are superficial, very superficial, and you could know facts at all, but you could have internalized incredible complexity, and that's the harder part to bear. The facts, like this is, you can't learn the multiplication table and understand math until you internalize that. You don't have to worry about understanding its motivations at that point, but you have to memorize it. And if that's easy, good for you. If it's hard, you have to do it anyways. And we need to persist here, but we're too busy, setting people against each other for arbitrary abilities they have that they've never really cultivated. It's just the luck of the draw, the luck of environment, the luck of genetics. Nature versus nurture is another false dichotomy. We just don't know. But what we do know is the more trauma that young people suffer, the more they are going to stay trapped in a very dysfunctional sort of hunter-gatherer reaction. And I mean, I'm still struggling with this, having lived quite comfortably and then pushed right through the veil, if you will, for a moment. And then falling back down, and I've fallen down so far. I don't know if I'm ever going to reclaim any sort of joy and peace of the kind I had. I mean, I just don't think I was that well prepared in the first place, and that's why meditation. If you're a dysfunctional person and you're gaining, these this ability to access these alternate realms of reality, which I'll say within, I'm disavowing any content here. That's not necessarily going to make you better. This is just more power seeking in the name of a word that bears no perjury. Maybe in this case it should. Enlightenment is not the boon in this time and place. It's might be where we're headed culturally, but we've got to step in between, and we've got so much dysfunction, and we're actually devolving into, I think, pure tribalism right now. And then the only people who really carry this rational mindset for, well, they're my age or older, and we're all just being shoved off the cliff and out of society faster. And this is just, it just seems all designed so that the powers that be can totalize us again. It's sickening. Why would you want to be here? I mean, if you can find joy in this, but you disavow yourself for responsibility, I don't think you're a good person. You know, I have more, like these days, I have more respect for criminals who admit they're criminals than I do for the criminals who pretend that they're not criminals. I mean, these are the corrupt leaders, the leaders who say one thing, but if history shows they were motivated by something else and they're being dishonest. Like this is another thing about Trudeau. I don't think he's honest. I don't think he's capable of being honest because he's convinced that we're too stupid to just be won over. And so this saying one thing and doing something else is just a way to trick us or manipulate us. This elitist, I mean, again, and the man is a dumbass. I've looked at the courses he has. Dude, these are basket weaving courses. The man never fully immersed himself in a difficult discipline and never got vetted. I could go to university and take a bunch of easy courses and get a degree, a minimal degree, and get high 90s. And that doesn't mean anything. I'm more proud of the fact that I've slipped slightly from my mid 80s down. I'm hanging on. A lot of times I'm dipping under now when I take courses, but I'm making the effort and I'm valuing the content for intrinsic reasons, not because the marks are going to, I never took courses to pad my marks. It's just, but this just is a game. And then people, I don't know, when people say marks don't matter, and yet they should matter. We should master a subject. I don't want to hire you. If you got 51 in the subject that I'm hiring you for, that doesn't seem like that doesn't seem like a good decision. I'd rather hire someone who can demonstrate they can do the work better, who never got a degree. Right? This is being lost in representations, and of course it's too easy for people to manipulate them. So you think you speak without thinking first? Well, how do you know? Because you might think non-consciously, right? And this is one of the models of consciousness emerging is looking at this. This is a bunch of competing modules of processing in the brain, and a lot of people think there's a global workspace, and it's just a matter of supercriticality as to what gets pushed up. So the notion of unconscious thought is not a problematic notion because we have unconscious perception. So what I think is, in cases where we just speak without thinking, it's just unconscious, exactly in the way perception can also be. There it is. So beyond self-observation as things stand. In these most contentious cases of ideal perception, and self-justifying, right? Like this is about you reporting on your beliefs. If you're honest, you're reporting truth. But this isn't truth propositional. It's subjective truth. It's truthfulness. And people get confused about this. That you're honest about what you believe is not warrant for the propositional belief that you have truthfully reported. And the problem of whether people know their beliefs, I just don't think most people are self-aware at all. And people are always correcting me about things. I know where I'm problematic, and it just drives me nuts. Why do people assume that I'm not self-aware? Like, Just because I have a problematic behavior doesn't mean I'm aware of it or willing to change it. Like, why? I no one else is. Why should I change my bad behaviors anymore? Makes me more interesting. I think maybe it'll, I can titillate, and this sensationalist ranting will give me an audience, and then I can stop authentically promoting my project and start spoon feeding pablum to keep my votes up, so I can finally have some comfort in life again, some minimal comfort. I'll sell out, but I need enough money to get through my life housed, and to be able to make decisions about how I can protect myself from the inevitable decay that is going to overtake our societies over the next few decades. Like, while I'm slowly aging out. Horrifying to me, horrifying. So in these these most uncontentious cases of ideal perception and self-justifying, this is true belief. This is, you'd have to read my PhD thesis here. And then I'm like, again, this is Moore. Is it Gerald Moore? I forget. I was thinking of it. George Moore. This is one hand. This is another. And that was his existence claim, proof of a real external world. But of course, it's just begging the question against the Maya hypothesis. And I wonder if he, mistook his existing claim for a propositional one. I don't know. I don't know. The man isn't alive. So there is a very close, in the sense of propinquitus, right? You can look up that word. It's an excellent word. Propinquitus. I'm having so much trouble pronouncing words. I hope that's not due to CTE, but I am struggling more than it's worrying. So it's not in the more abstract and novel sense of close. So I'm using the word close to mean a lot of things, primarily to mark the local, this naive reality as the close neurology. And closeness could be in time, it could be in scale, or distance, right? So this is another part of my my technicizing of words that's specific to the model of the universe I'm trying to build, this biocentered para-hologram that I think it is. So this is a close mind-to-world direction of fit of an occurrent mental state to some concrete objects of perception, right? So you're looking at a cat. There's a sense in which the mental state must persist as long as you're foveating and intending to it. So it's a perpetual mental state, and this is why, not all people have this, but I have a very what seems vivid inner world. Like, I can picture arbitrary things like a pink elephant, and then I can make it a green elephant with pink spots. I'm doing it right now. Now, am I really seeing that, or am I confabulating? But I don't think so, because you can test this. You could go to the house I lived in Oakville on 128 Chisholm Street, and that house is still there, and I could walk you through that house accurately. And I would do that because of this inner image, but we don't understand, and it's an inverted thing because of, there's the after images, right? So it's not that I'm seeing an elephant; I'm seeing an inverted elephant, if you will, right? And it appears as an elephant, as a ghost, and what would make it real is if there were a green elephant with pink spots, and then that image would really get clear. But then there's the question, is that image in my head, or am I just seeing the elephant? And this is about the transparency of, again, I've just dragged in a whole bunch of complicated and interesting stuff in the philosophy of perception there too. I can't relay it all. So non-perceptual beliefs often have the same direction of fit. Well, they always do, right? If it's a belief about some object, some naively given object, that isn't a fiction. It's just a close, non-problematic cat on the mat, if you will. So these non-perceptual beliefs, because now we're going to shift away from perceptual belief as tied to existence claim and as the closest tipping point to getting to the non-perceptual and propositional belief, which make logical claims, and I want to keep these things separate. They don't show or require the same sort of intimacy with their objects to occur or reoccur, because I can imagine something that doesn't exist and then make it, like an iPod. And it's very easy to conjure up animals in my head because I'm always coming across animals. But like all these ideas I have about my philosophy, like I believe we need a biocentered ontology again. I think we need to be neo-Aristotelian, and so I picture things, these non-perceptual things in my head, but they're not as clear and easy to make vivid as, say, imagining a place where I lived for a long time, and being able to, at a great distance, describe in great detail based on an image I see in my head, and guide someone through that house in a way where they go, yeah, Brian, you really can image this house. And I think I have a shockingly powerful capacity here, a rare capacity, and it's not understood and it's not validated. Part of the problem is I can see things that other people don't. It doesn't mean they're not real, and this is part of the problem of us oppressing ourselves, right? It is ostriches, denial, right? This is the short-termism. I mean, again, if you're not putting this together, you're never going to. In between, we have recalled perceptual beliefs, right, where the character of the mental state content is assumed still distally caused, in part or whole, by some once closely perceived object or event, often ingrained over many exposures. So, the repeated exposure, it's harder to orient. So if it's the same cat in the same place you see all the time, that will become more vivid faster than just seeing a bunch of cats at random, like you're because where they get marked in the space time worm for you to orient your non-conscious memory retrieval. Well, obviously the mind has more work, and through that the brain to how does it do that? How does it bring, like, that means that part of how the intuition to universals, in how the brain and the mind groups objects on the basis of direct perceptual belief, which then is accrued to some kind of representation of essence beyond just the naming of particulars. But as said object or event is in these cases not present for reperceiving, memory call is to some significant degree always a mixed reconceiving and reperceiving. And maybe, it goes sensory, data, perception, conception, and I think there's these inversions. I think it's one process, but there's an inversion of scale from cells to the brain, and then within the brain there's an inversion from perception to conception. I think these are just rough hypotheses. So the question arises: in an uninterpreted or base percept is an uninterpreted or base percept unspoken, behaviorally justified. The sort of thing that should be considered propositionally satisfiable under any semantic account involving truth. So this is just, these are complex issues. I've got to give you all this background machinery, and then I'm trying to tease apart other novel concerns. I really think the answering of questions, better questions, is really in the wheelhouse of this philosopher, and this is where the useful philosophy is, not the stuff that Wittgenstein and the positives were worried about. I'm pretty sure I understand some of what Hegel meant, but and the same with Heidegger. There's just a point where if you're not keeping up, you just feel like you're just in some grammatically consistent realm of stuff that no longer touches the real, right? Or do all percepts first need to be parsed by cognition or conception prior to any possible satisfaction is veridical by other kinds of satisfaction having little to nothing to do with logical forms of truth? In other words, is the notion, perceptual belief, coherent at all except in a minimally descriptive and gap begging sense? And so this is sort of the problem about deciding whether babies have concepts, because they can't confirm that they do in propositional behavior, but they seem to in well-constructed experiments that tap into their Kantian preconceptions about objects and how they behave, something they seem to be given. And it would seem, the argument goes, that if they are behaviorally confirming certain perceptual beliefs, we worry, is this conception or not? It would seem to need to have concepts, but then there were other people saying that, well, you need concepts to be conscious. So how can they have concepts and not be fully conscious in the self-reporting way? There seems to be a Necker cube to me. I didn't do that well. I'll do a video on that. The problem of deciding whether nonverbal sentience has concepts or not, because of the critical role the rationalist impugned for concepts. I mean, it got ridiculous. Like Tyler Burge tore them a new one. Well, I've probably missed the start of the Four Nations final. It's getting darker, as you can see. Until tomorrow.